Yakumo was a lonely broke orphan who used to make petty cash by using his secret psychic ability to trick people and win card games. However, an ordinary girl changed his life forever. The tale begins with an ominous-looking red jewel in the center of the city. Yakumo stood still while others walked in the opposite direction. All of a sudden, he held up the red jewel to the sky and gazed at it intently, questioning the truth behind the human soul. Sometime later, a cute young girl with pink hair is seen looking for some place. After some searching, she finally arrives at her desired spot, the film club on screen. She opens the door to find 3 people inside. Right now, one person is making a bet with 2 others. He guesses the opponent's card correctly and wins the bet. After settling the bet, the other 2 leave, and the winner goes back to sleep. The girl speaks up and asks if the guy is Seru Yakumo. She revealed she heard about him from an older student and wonders if Yakumo truly has psychic abilities. Though the man claims to be Yakumo, he asks who the girl is. She introduces herself as Ozawa Haruka and requests Yakumo to keep their conversation confidential. With that, she starts telling her story about what happened 2 weeks ago. She and her classmates were having a farewell celebration when Derek suggested they do a courage test in the old building, which was off limits. As they entered, they noticed something strange. Their shadows were moving independently and looked monstrous. 10 days after the strange occurrence, students began to act oddly. Miki was the first, still recovering in the hospital. Then, Kazuhiko tragically ended his life by jumping off a building. When Yakumo heard about Kazuhiko's death, he questioned Haruka if she had seen it happen. He insisted that without her witnessing it, they couldn't be certain it involved ghosts. Despite this, Haruka pleads with Yakumo to help save Miki. He agrees, but demands a seemingly low price of 25,000 yen. Haruka hesitates to pay upfront, but then catches Yakumo cheating earlier with a mirror. This revelation prompts her to leave. Surprisingly, Yakumo, impressed by her sharpness, offers his help without taking the payment in advance. However, Haruka remains skeptical of him, believing he's a fraud. To convince her otherwise, Yakumo claims he can see and communicate with ghosts, though he admits he can't banish them entirely. Nevertheless, he can reason with them. Despite her doubts, Haruka's belief starts to waver when Yakumo mentions her deceased twin sister, killed in a car accident. Overwhelmed, Haruka asks him to stop and starts to trust his words. Together, they rush to Miki's hospital bedside, where she lies weak and unresponsive. Despite doctors' uncertainty, Yakumo sees something they can't: the souls of the dead clinging to Miki's body. He identifies 4 souls and communicates with them. After visiting Miki, Yakumo informs Haruka that Miki is possessed by the souls of 4 murder victims. These souls usually linger where the murders occurred or where the bodies were disposed of. This suggests a crime must have taken place in the old building. Later that night, Haruka receives a distressing call and hurries to the train station, only to discover her friend Yuichi has taken his own life. There, she meets a professor who witnessed the incident and discusses it with him. He reveals eerie similarities between Yuichi's situation and Miki's. Yuichi had apparently mentioned their group sneaking into the old building, stirring up spooky rumors. The professor suspects ghostly involvement, though he knows the police won't buy it. Yakumo, eavesdropping, grows suspicious. As they leave, Yakumo warns Haruka of the danger she's in, insisting they stick together for safety since the threat is human. The next day, they attempt to enter the old building but are directed to seek approval from Takeoka, the teacher overseeing the building. Interestingly, Yakumo notices disturbed soil on the way back, leading them to discover buried items, strengthening Yakumo's suspicion that Takeoka is the culprit. At a cafe, Yakumo shares his theory with Haruka, though lacking solid evidence. However, Yakumo cleverly retrieves a cup from the trash for Takeoka to drink from, potentially obtaining DNA evidence. Later that day, Yakumo meets with Goto, a policeman, and hands him a bag before Goto leaves. Haruka and Yakumo then return to the club room, where Yakumo continues to watch over her. However, Haruka needs to use the restroom and leaves briefly. When she returns, she spots a shadowy figure. Meanwhile, Goto visits a peculiar old doctor who confirms that the fingerprints on Takeoka's cup match those found on the buried bodies. The missing individual's fingerprints are also on the items, confirming Yakumo's theory. Goto tries to inform Yakumo but can't find him. Yakumo, however, discovers Haruka's purse in the women's restroom and follows the guidance of spirits to the old building. Inside, Takeoka holds Haruka captive with intent to kill her, but Yakumo arrives, leading to a confrontation where Takeoka's attack fails due to Yakumo's special eye, which can see the souls of the dead. Takeoka is frightened and sets the building on fire before fleeing, only to be apprehended by the police later. The fire brigade rescues Haruka and Yakumo from the roof. While waiting, Haruka shares her story about her sister and her feelings of guilt over her death. Yakumo reassures her, saying her sister harbors no resentment. Moved, Haruka wishes to see her sister again, and Yakumo facilitates a spiritual encounter, allowing Haruka to bid her sister farewell. Grateful, Haruka thanks Yakumo. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a blonde couple discusses a ghost in the river, claiming it can be moved with sacred ink, a solution agreed upon by the ghost's father. Later on, two workers are busy setting up a stage in a shrine during the late hours of the night. They have to hurry because the chairman, Eri, is coming early in the morning to check on their progress. One of them shares rumors about the place being haunted. Suddenly, they hear a child's laughter, and things start shaking and breaking. Meanwhile, the next morning, Haruka meets Yakumo to visit Miki in the hospital. Yakumo wakes up startled, remembering their encounter at the burning building. He explains he rarely goes home and got this room by tricking the school. They head to the hospital where Yakumo talks to the spirits possessing Miki, leading to an improvement in her condition. Haruka is amazed at how Yakumo convinced the spirits. Yakumo believes ghosts are emotions left by the dead and refuses to harm them. Later, Yakumo reveals he already received payment from Miki's father for his help. Haruka becomes more comfortable with him, but Yakumo ends their contract. Haruka continues her part-time job and serves an old man who talks about a fox's curse at a shrine. This old man is Chairman Eri, who wants to build a new building at the shrine but is facing obstacles due to the curse. That evening, Haruka decides to visit the shrine. There, she encounters a person wearing a fox mask, which frightens her and she runs away. While fleeing, she accidentally bumps into a man with a red eye, similar to Yakumo's. Meanwhile, the blonde man assigns the rest of the task to his female partner. Later, Haruka learns that the man with the red eye is Yakumo's uncle. She tells him about the ghost she saw, and they both go to investigate. The man, named Ishin, confesses that his red eye is fake. He pretended to have it to understand Yakumo's struggles better. Finding no clues, they return, and Haruka decides to follow Ishin to his temple. Along the way, he explains that Yakumo doesn't feel at home there because of many ghosts being drawn to the place. Inside the temple, they find Yakumo and meet his deaf cousin. Although Ishin offers tea, Yakumo leaves, upsetting Haruka. Ishin and now try to comfort her, and Ishin encourages her to confide in him. She decides to do so but sees Yakumo chatting with a girl and refrains from interrupting. The next day, she focuses on work and visits the shrine again, where she meets the wheelchair-bound chairman and tells him about the ghost. He philosophizes about life, emphasizing the importance of living without regrets. Suddenly, they hear a child's laughter and the lights blow out. A pipe flies towards Haruka, but Yakumo saves her. The chairman asks who he is, and Yakumo explains he's investigating the area. He believes a person is behind the phenomenon, as ghosts can't manipulate matter. The laughter came from a speaker, and the lights blew up due to gunpowder. According to Yakumo, the culprit is inside the storage shed where all the equipment is connected. Slowly, the culprit, revealed to be Kunamatsu, steps out of the shed and apologizes to the chairman and Haruka for endangering them. He explains his actions, objecting to the development of the shrine. Kunamatsu gets honest with the chairman, his longtime friend Tekken, urging him to abandon the idea, as Kuniko, the chairman's past love, will never return. It's disclosed that in their youth, the chairman and Kuniko fell in love but were from different backgrounds. They planned to elope, but a misunderstanding led Kuniko to the wrong shrine, and they never fully connected. Kuniko married someone else and died after giving birth. Feeling guilty, the chairman wants to merge the shrines before he dies. However, Yakumo interrupts, revealing he can see ghosts and claiming Kuniko's ghost is waiting. Moved, the chairman tries to stand and reaches the spot Yakumo pointed to. Suddenly, the fox mask spirit appears, finally reuniting with its beloved and ascending. At the university, Haruka visits Yakumo, wanting to be more honest after the incident. Meanwhile, the blonde woman manipulates a father searching for a vessel for his daughter's soul. One evening, a car wins its way along a mountain road, entering a dark and eerie tunnel. Inside, a black mist begins to seep from the walls, causing the driver to tense up. Suddenly, a hand reached down from the roof, startling the driver, followed by the appearance of a woman's head morphing into a demonic visage, leading to a crash. The next morning, Haruka heads to meet Yakumo at the clubroom but finds him absent. Noticing his key in the fridge, she decides to wait for his return. Meanwhile, the police chief's daughter, a journalist, visits the station seeking information, but faces resentment from the officers who feel she exploits her father's position. She persuades Godu to share details with her and shows him a photograph of a ghost, believing Yakumo can help. Haruka and the journalist meet at the clubroom, where Koda, who has known Yakumo since childhood, joins them. When Yakumo arrives, Haruka recounts an incident from the previous day when she and a coworker, Nakahara, encountered sinister figures in a supposedly haunted tunnel. She asks Yakumo to check for any attached spirits. Yakumo clears Haruka but agrees to examine Nakahara. Next, Godu shows Yakumo the ghost photo, seeking his opinion. Yakumo identifies a garage in the background, specifically one belonging to Hayami Toro, a shady mechanic. The ghost in the photo is a missing scholar. Godu wants Yakumo to communicate with the ghost to uncover Toro's whereabouts and locate the scholar's body. As a result, Godu and Yakumo head to the location and start digging, eventually uncovering the child's body. They take the body to the old doctor, who finds a rope mark around the neck, indicating the child was run over and then strangled. Enraged, Godu receives a call from Hijikata, the police chief's daughter, but he brushes her off, urging her to share information over the phone. She informs him that Toro, the owner of the illegal garage, has been arrested. Meanwhile, Haruka brings Nakahara to Yakumo to check for lingering ghosts. Yakumo finds none, but Nakahara is intrigued by his room. He spots the ghost photo on the wall and trembles, raising Yakumo's suspicion. Yakumo informs Godu, suggesting Nakahara might be linked to the location, the ghost, or the murderer. Hijikata brings Godu news that Toro has confessed, supporting Yakumo's theory that Nakahara hit the boy with his car. Nakahara went to Toro to fix his car and buried the injured boy to cover his tracks. Godu instructs them to keep Nakahara in custody, but he and Haruka have already left. Yakumo calls Haruka, but she hesitates to answer, recalling his earlier refusal to share his whereabouts. Suddenly, Nakahara's body jerks uncontrollably, causing him to run a red light. Haruka sees the ghost child in the rear seat, prompting her to finally call Yakumo for help. Godu arrives, and Yakumo joins him as they pursue Nakahara. Soon, they catch up, and Yakumo attempts to persuade the ghost to fulfill his plan, but fails. Perplexed, Yakumo wonders what to do next, prompting Godu to take action. Accelerating, Godu maneuvers his vehicle parallel to Nakahara's, using it to push Nakahara's car into the rails and walls, forcing it to stop. As the cars halt, Yakumo quickly checks on Haruka. Suddenly, the ghost dashes past him, leading Yakumo deeper into the tunnel. There, the boy starts to be drawn into a vortex. Although Yakumo reaches out to help, he ultimately decides against it, allowing the ghost to be consumed by the darkness in the tunnel. The following day, Haruka returns to the tunnel to pay her respects to the boy's spirit. Ishin and Nao arrive, revealing they were tasked by Yakumo to address the restless ghosts in the area. On their way back, Ishin shares the story of how and why Yakumo got his name, expressing their hopes for his peace of mind. Elsewhere, the old doctor investigates a newly discovered body. Despite his surprise, he proceeds to examine the corpse and take photos. Sensing the presence of the blonde woman and the father, he continues his work. They lament the continued absence of Ayaka's revival, but the woman encourages the father to persevere. The blonde man, with a red eye, prepares to confront Yakumo on a dark, rainy night. Hijikata drives down deserted roads when she spots a man lying in the middle of the street. Alarmed, she rushes to his aid, finding him in agony, clutching his chest. After calling for an ambulance, the man suddenly screams in pain and falls silent. Startled, Hijikata turns to see the man's figure behind her, shrouded in an eerie purple glow. The next morning, a schoolgirl's body is discovered, mirroring a previous victim's death. The old doctor confirms it's the work of a serial killer. Police prepare for a press conference as another girl goes missing. Rumi's disappearance prompts a public outcry, leading to the conference. However, they find out that Godu has been transferred out due to meddling in unrelated matters. He's now part of the Unsolved Cases Special Investigation Unit, along with Ishia Utero. On Godu's first day, he ignores Ishia and naps until the chief calls him to his cabin, refusing to leave his desk. Ishia is impressed by Godu's boldness. Meanwhile, at Maze University, Haruka meets a worried friend who claims to have seen a ghost and was directed to Haruka for advice by someone named Miki. Haruka heads to the film club room where Yakumo is alone. There, she retrieves her belongings from the fridge, sparking an argument with Yakumo. It's revealed that Haruka is now an official member of the club, entitled to its facilities just like Yakumo. Yakumo notices Haruka calling him by his name instead of the more formal Yakumo-san, citing their similar age. She convinces him of the change, but before she can discuss further, Goto arrives and summons Yakumo. Yakumo tries to stall, claiming prior arrangements with Haruka, who's actually gone off to investigate her friend's incident alone. Goto takes Yakumo to the chief's house, briefing him on the situation involving Hijikata, a journalist, and Ando, a man who overdosed. Hijikata's family believes she's possessed, leading to a plea from her father, the police chief, to save her. As Goto and Yakumo enter the house, they find Hijikata lying in bed, looking pale and weak. However, she suddenly sits up, displaying aggressive behavior, and warning Goto to stay back. Yakumo senses Ando's soul hovering over her and informs Goto. They realize Ando is desperate to live and is possessing Hijikata, putting her at risk of death. Uncertain how to proceed, they decide to learn more about Ando first. Consequently, they head to the creepy doctor to retrieve those files. There, the doctor is amazed to see Yakumo. He welcomes him, asking him questions about death and human souls. However, Goto and Ishia break up the topic. Anyway, after retrieving the files, Goto orders Ishia to go find the stuff Ando had on him when he died. As such, while Ishia is away, Goto and Yakumo look over the files. While waiting, Yakumo claims that Ishia holds feelings for Goto, feelings which are something more than respect and admiration. As per Yakumo, this makes Goto to ride out when suddenly Ishia finally arrives. Although Goto is now worried about Ishii's intentions, they all still go over the items, and Yakumo finds a picture in a book. This is a picture of Ayaka, the same ghost Haruka saw on the river. With this, Ishia is ordered to investigate one of the keys while Goto and Yakumo investigate the other key in this picture. As such, they head to a clinic to investigate the photograph. It just so happens that Haruka was also admitted there after being found by someone while drowning. There, Yakumo possesses a detective, however, the doctor recognizes him. Apparently, he was the one who helped Yakumo's mother as their sons birthed him. The doctor asks how his mother is, learning that she has been missing for 10 years. In a flashback, it is revealed that one night, Yakumo's mother tried to strangle him to death. Even the red jewel necklace belongs to her. That night, he manages to snatch it from her while he was saved by a security officer. Goto Yakumo also has one question for the doctor. How did his mother react seeing that her newborn had a red eye? The doctor is hesitant to answer it, but upon Yakumo's insistence, he reveals that she was completely horrified after seeing this. This makes him extremely sad, and he exits the room, seeing Haruka, who woke up and ended up eavesdropping on the conversation standing outside the door. Regardless, he ignores her and makes his way to the river. As he stares at the water, he is enraged and decides to discard the red jewel. As he begins to throw the necklace away, Haruka intervenes, stopping him from doing so. She claims that he should not throw it away, his mother's only possession, but Yakumo pushes her away. He questions what Haruka knows about him. As Haruka falls over, he realizes that he is getting violent and feels apologetic. But Haruka then begins to speak. She claims that, of course, she knows nothing about him. Yakumo is always alone, carrying all his burdens in silence. However, she wants to help him. Not only that, she tells him to not discard his mother's necklace, claiming that although she might have her reasons, she was still his mother. Her words are enough for Yakumo to change his mind. With this, he apologizes to Haruka, handing her the necklace to hold on to. As they share this bittersweet moment, they are seen to be watched by the blonde couple. The man expresses how even despite learning the truth, Yakumo is still able to resist the darkness. But this is all just a path of life. Eventually, he too will fall into the abyss, swallowed by the never-ending night, just like his mother did. In addition, the man orders the woman to inform their victim that he has just found a perfect vessel for his daughter's soul while he stares at Haruka. Regardless, now that Yakumo is in control of his emotions, Haruka tells him about her ordeal, recalling the story about her friend Miyuko, who happened upon the ghost. She takes him to the same location. There, Goto comes running behind. Meanwhile, Yakumo investigates. Goto asks what happened, and Haruka tells him. Hearing this, he just tells her to call up Yakumo for these sorts of things. However, Haruka states that she doesn't want to be someone who just uses him for his power. With this, she goes to Yakumo's side, who tells her the same thing. Not only that, but he also sees the ghost. As such, they head back to the clinic. There, Yakumo comes clean, apologizing for acting like a police officer there. Godu explains the situation of Hijikata. Apparently, Ando was Kinishida's junior in medical school and were close. According to him, after his daughter Ayaka had died, Ando asked for a picture of her to remember her with, something which looked to be weird behavior. Regardless, Kinishida gave him the picture Godu had discovered. As Kinishida is done speaking, Yakumo announces that he had just met with Ayaka's ghost. He claims that her ghost is still lingering in the area where she died, telling all those who pass by to stop it. Yakumo asks if Kinishida knows why she would do something like that, making him deny any knowledge. However, Yakumo pushes further, asking if Kinishida is trying to revive his daughter. Nevertheless, Kinishida answers that it would be his wish if possible. As such, they all leave and decide to find clues to the next key. As they drive, Akumo notices an E3 painted on the walls. Seeing this, he realizes that the letter is the same letter as on the key. As a result, Godu and Yakumo decide to check 5th place out. As they enter this shed, they slowly sneak in. There, they sense the presence of a human and arm themselves. However, what they find is Rumi, the girl who was recently reported missing. This news was made public, and Rumi has written to her family in a statement. Not only that, the belongings of all the girls that have been murdered are also found in the shed, making Ando the serial killer behind this incident. The next day, the old Dr. Kazukumo takes Yakumo to his office, where he shows him the expressions of the recently murdered girls. The doctor said that in his long life, having this sort of work, he has never seen such a peaceful expression on the dead and asks Yakumo if he knows what that might mean. Then there's Godu, who is accompanying Yakumo, and happened to see a photo. This is a photograph of Kinishida, and by his side is the blonde man. Seeing this, Yakumo is perplexed. Meanwhile, Haruka is heading to meet with Kinishida to thank him for saving her. On the way, she bumps into his chin. Now, as they all chat, Ishin notices that Haruka is wearing his sister's necklace. As such, Haruka explains that Yakumo had given it to her to hold on to. With this, they part ways, and she heads to the clinic. As she reaches there, she gives the offerings she has brought to Kinishida. But he, on the other hand, is acting strangely. He claims that he had to meet Haruka. Knowing this confuses her, but Kinishida explains his words, stating that he is told Haruka will be the perfect vessel for Ayaka's soul. All of a sudden, the blonde woman appears from behind, using a taser to knock Haruka out. Meanwhile, after seeing the photograph, Godu is hastily making his way to Kinishida, deeming that the involvement of the blonde man makes him a highly suspicious target. On their way, Yakumo gets a call from Haruka. As he picks it up, the blonde woman speaks from the other side. She tells him that his precious friend will die tonight, telling him the location. She tells him to hurry and maybe he could make it on time. And so Yakumo tells Godu to change directions and head towards the floodgate. And so they rush to the location, finding that Kinishida is about to throw Haruka into the river. Nevertheless, Yakumo and Godu desperately try to prevent this, but Kinishida uses a pipe to hit Godu, causing Haruka to fall without a destination. Yakumo jumps in after her and manages to rescue her. Soon after, Haruka opens her eyes. Kinishida, who is now constrained, will be arrested first. He wants to ask him something. As a result, he tells Godu to take them all back to the clinic in Kalapada. The old doctor and Ishia, who is ordered to bring the possessed to Jakarta. Once everyone has gathered, Yakumo begins. He asks if Kinishida was shown Ayaka's spirit. With the help of the two red-eyed men, Kinishida agrees, explaining that he was told if he killed a girl the same age as his daughter, her soul would possess the corpse, and Nayaka would be revived. On the next question, why did Kinishida kill Endo? He did so because Endo was not his junior. Rather, Endo was introduced to him by this blonde man to kidnap the girls resembling his daughter. However, Endo soon began blackmailing him, asking for more money, or else he would come clean to the police. That is why Kinshida used drugs to kill Ando. According to him, trash like Ando, who uses the parents' love for their children to transport them, should die. When Yakumo comes in claiming that even Kinishida's victims had parents, this led to Kinishida abusing Yakumo, asking what a child his mother tries to kill knows. However, Yakumo then explains that although he might not know about this, he knows the suffering of a child who has to endure the consequences of his parents' actions. With this, he brings out the photos of all the recently murdered girls. He claims that Ayaka's soul possessed these bodies for sure. According to him, Ayaka wanted to relieve the fear and pain from the victims in their final breaths, and as such, she had to endure all the pain after she decided to possess the dying girls in their last moments. Because of this, it is like Kinishida has repeatedly killed his daughter, making her soul relive death over and over again. Hearing this, Kinishida breaks down and seeing him realize his actions, Ando's ghost leaves for Jakarta. Nevertheless, as per Yakumo, Ando left because he realized that even possessing someone is not enough for a soul to return back to life. The next morning, Haruka opens Ayaka's grave for a visit. There, Goto returns to his office. In the car, he finally figures out why she looks at him with such eyes, learning that if she thought Goto was a psychic who used his powers to solve cases, but as it turns out, it is Yakumo who has the power. Meanwhile, while Haruka is praying, Yakumo looks across the river, finding that the blonde man is standing there. It is revealed that this man is Yakumo's biological dad, something Yakumo refuses to acknowledge. Nevertheless, Haruka is done with her prayer and they both head back. One day, a bachelor is visiting an apartment he wants to rent. Supposedly, this place is haunted, which makes the rent extremely cheap. Not only that, it also comes with an inconspicuous mirror. What a great deal. However, that same night, he feels a presence while showering, but he just chalks it up to his imagination. As such, he continues his routine and heads into the room. Suddenly, the lights go out. Soon after, despite the darkness, the man sees a ghostly figure behind the mirror, causing him to scream in horror. The next morning, Hijikata visited the Unsolved Cases Union at the police department. Nonetheless, her arrival makes Ishia jumpy, and he ends up spilling coffee on himself. Anyway, Hijikata claims she has come to pay her thanks. However, Goto is nowhere to be seen. It has been revealed that he has taken the day off and returned home, but neither his wife nor child are present. Meanwhile, at the university, Haru and her friends are discussing typical topics that girls often talk about. Who would have thought? Nayuko mentions Yakumo and shifts the conversation to Haruka. This leads to her rambling on about her feelings and personal issues while her friends abandon her and go to talk to a guy who appears to be distressed. This is the same guy who was attacked by the ghost in the apartment. Date. This brings Haruka to the film club where she finds Yakumo sleeping yet again. Regardless, she wakes him up, and they both start bickering. Yakumo even called her fat, which was a Chad move. However, eventually Haruka told him about Date's situation. Yakumo decides to help out and first heads to meet with the real estate agent. From him, Yakumo learns about how a woman named Kimiko passed away in that room, and ever since ghosts have been appearing there. And so Yakumo decides to learn more about Kimiko by heading to her workplace. There, he meets one of her coworkers posing as his family. He learns that Kimiko is a rather uptight and serious girl who is not very well liked by others. With this new piece of information, they begin their journey towards Date's location. However, on the way, Ishia and Hijikata spot them. Ishia is delighted to see his beloved Haruka-chan and asks her to accompany them. He claims that Hijikata is treating him to food to celebrate her recovery, so Haruka should tag along with them. Nevertheless, while she is talking with Ishia, Yakumo leaves her behind. Noticing this, she has to refuse the invitation and begins searching for him. Eventually, she finds her way to Date's apartment. As she arrives there, she presses the doorbell and enters the house. Inside, she sees Yakumo without a shirt, and he explains that he was borrowing Date's shower. Moreover, Haruka starts complaining and asks why he left her and then continues to ignore her calls. But Yakumo is unconcerned, claiming that he never asked her to come anyway. Despite this, the atmosphere is kind of steamy, this being the first time in a guy's room and the first time seeing Yakumo without his shirt. Haruka is acting a bit weird. Suddenly, Yakumo apologizes for his harsh words earlier, catching Haruka off guard. With this announcement, he then closes in on her, making her heart beat faster. But unlike in her imagination, Yakumo has found a clue. He notices that the inconspicuous mirror was attached by an amateur, most likely Kimiko herself. All of a sudden, Yakumo sees a ghostly figure in the mirror. Upon speaking with it, he is instructed to retrieve an envelope from behind the mirror and burn it without looking inside. Yakumo plans to do just that. As a result, they head over to Isshin's temple, where he has already prepared a fire for them. However, at the last moment, Haruka decides not to burn the envelope without peeking inside. As such, she opened the envelope only to find a picture of Kimiko all dolled up. Seeing this, she understands that Kimiko is a shy girl who wants to dress up and look cute. However, she was too shy and couldn't do so in public. Hence, others considered her as serious. Suddenly, Kimiko's ghost arrives. Yakumo tells this to Haruka, stating that she is not angry that Haruka broke the promise. With this, she then burns the picture in the envelope, and Kimiko's ghost passes on after telling Haruka to do her best as well. And so this brings this ordeal to an end. While Haruka plays with Nao, Isshin and Yakumo chat. He expresses his wonder if there was another personality inside his mother that he didn't know about, similar to Kimiko's shy side. Anyway, Haruka soon comes back, and they both leave the temple as they exist. Nao approaches him, looking at him with puppy eyes. It looks like Nao wants something. As such, Haruka gives him a clue. I was wearing a new cardigan. With this, he understands what Nao wants and gives her a compliment. This makes her extremely happy, and Haruka commends Yakumo by poking him in the ribs. This not only sends him flying away but also reveals that his ribs are his weak spot. One night, a young girl was seen drawing savage cannibalizing humans while singing an eerie lullaby. Suddenly, she is approached by the blonde man. This man announces that dreams do not come true by merely drawing them. Rather, one has to work and fight to make them a reality. Showing her his red eyes, he manages to convince her to come under his wing. The following day, Haruka heads to the film club once again. There, Yakumo is sitting on the couch and asks what kind of trouble she has brought him today. But today she comes bearing good news and presents him with a concert poster. Haruka announces that she will be taking part in it and wants Yakumo to come listen to her play. In her tsundere attitude, Yakumo agrees to come along, and Haruka leaves soon after, stating that she will bring the ticket tomorrow. Elsewhere, Hijikata is in an abandoned ruined manor. There, she is taking pictures of this mansion, hoping to find any sophistication amid rumors surrounding it. Hijikata has come to investigate. Nevertheless, she is not too happy with her progress so far. As a result, she decides to venture into the upper levels of the mansion. While exploring, she hears a faint noise coming from a room. Therefore, she peeks in only to find that a woman has collapsed on the ground. As Hijikata wakes her up, she appears to be a bit delirious, screaming out that there is a ghost. Suddenly, the woman hugs her as she makes a sinister grin behind Hijikata's back. They go to Yakumo to inform him about the situation and ask him to take a look at the video of a ghost. Kodu explains that it was filmed in the nanny's mansion, where 4 members of the family were murdered 15 years ago. In hindsight, a new unit has been formed to investigate this case. As such, Yakumo ends up following them to the police department. There, they all join up with Hijikata and review the footage. Hijikata has already checked with the professionals, and this footage seems to be unedited. Finally, they begin watching. However, the film is too long, and most of the time nothing happens. As a result, Yakumo asks Hijikata to fast forward it to the exact time, and so she does. On the screen, a ghostly figure can be seen as clear as day. Upon seeing the ghost, Yakumo immediately stands up and silently leaves the room. Meanwhile, Haruka goes to the film room, but the door is locked. Using a spare key she has, she enters the room and puts the ticket there. Later that night, Yakumo calls her, much to her delight and surprise. But he doesn't have good news, stating that he has something to do and so will not be able to attend the concert. After hanging up, he heads over to a location. The next morning, Goto and Ishida are still trying to get in contact with Yakumo, but he isn't answering his phone. All of a sudden, Captain Miyagawa arrives. Meanwhile, Haruka goes to the club room and finds that Yakumo has not yet returned. Moreover, she finds a map with a location pinpointed on it and decides to go look for Yakumo in this area. As she explores, a man's figure is seen behind her. On the other hand, Goto has been dragged away by Miyagawa, who confides in him. She reveals that she was the officer who discovered Nani's murders. However, Miyuki, a 10-year-old girl, was kidnapped and is still alive, even though she tried to save her. Someone or rather something attacked her. Now she has been missing for 15 years, and Miyagawa wants Goto to find her and solve the case. And so, he takes the system with him and heads to investigate the nanny's manor late at night. But first, Goto suggests that they interview Ishino, the girl who filmed the ghost. But when they visit her, Goto finds her to resemble the blonde woman who accompanies the red-eyed man. Regardless, they do the interview and then hurry to the mansion. But as she is too afraid to step inside, as a result, Goto ventures alone but is attacked by the blonde woman. As she confronts and tases him, Goto screams aloud. Despite this, as she is too afraid to intervene, she instead calls the police for help. The next day, Miyagawa scolds him for his cowardly behavior, punching him in the nose, announcing that he will never forgive him if something happens to Goto. Meanwhile, Haruka is still worried about how Yakumo is still nowhere to be found. But the person in question is seen near a wooden cabin. As he explores the cabin, he is jumped by the blonde woman. She easily overwhelms him, revealing that the video was a trap to lure Yakumo to this location. Not only that, she comes closer to him and announces that she loves him so much that she wants to ruin his life. With this, she then tases his heart and begins laughing maniacally. In the meantime, the police are putting up posters to find Takeda. Suddenly, one of the police officers notices him standing only a few feet in front of them. This causes a chase, and Takeda seems to be luring them somewhere. On the other hand, Hijikata comes to the office and learns that Goto has really disappeared. Not only that, she finds that she is now a shell of his former self. As Yakumo is also out of range, they contact Haruka, who is en route to the temple. As a result, everyone gathers at the temple. After a short introduction, they get onto the topic, learning that Goto and Yakumo both disappeared around the same time. After seeing the ghost footage, Ishin wants to have a look himself. However, what he finds is shocking. The ghost captured in the video is none other than Azusa, Ishin's sister and Yakumo's mother. Suddenly, Ishin, who had been unresponsive until now, spoke up, suggesting that they should leave this to the police. However, Haruka refutes this and condemns Ishin for thinking in such a manner, calling him disgusting. As such, she leaves the room and Hijikata follows him. She finds him sitting depressed on the temple stairs and gives him words of encouragement. Thanks to her words and motivation, Ishin finally realizes how much he has messed up recently, and decides to open his eyes once and for all. Meanwhile, Takeda heads out to the burial grounds where Haruka has escaped crying. There he also comforts her. Additionally, he recalls a story from the past when Yakumo was in middle school. There was a teacher who passed away. Yakumo blamed himself for this. One night, he tried to poke his own eye out. Nevertheless, Ishin stops him from doing so, getting injured in the process. It was on that day that Ishin started wearing the red contact lenses, not wanting to leave Yakumo alone in this cruel situation. Hearing this story, Haruka understands how Yakumo is also trying to shield others from himself. With this, she calms down, and they both return to the temple where Ishin is already present. He apologizes for his earlier words. Finally, the group is on the same page. As such, Hijikata suggests that they start thinking like Yakumo in order to find his location. As such, they start reviewing the footage again. All of a sudden, Haruka realizes something. She noticed that although the supposed location is near the train tracks, there are no trains passing by despite it being peak hours. This led her to theorize that the location of this footage is not Nana's manor. To verify this, both Hijikata and Ishii attempt to gather information on the person who gave them the video. However, they discover that all the information provided was fake. Suddenly, Ishin came walking in while searching through his sister's belongings for clues. He stumbled upon a letter addressed to her. And who is the writer of this letter? Haruka's mother. This leaves everyone shocked. With this, Ishin once again goes into a flashback. Apparently, Azusa was once abducted and captured by a man. However, after 2 entire weeks, she was able to escape, and the one who helped her at that time was Kiko, Haruka's mother. Faith really is a mysterious thing, Ishin proclaims. In addition, he states that although he has wanted to open this letter multiple times wishing it could hold a clue to her location, he couldn't bring himself to do it. Not only that, but during the time of Azusa's capture, she was abused. Later she gave birth to Yakumo, with the biological father being the kidnapper. As such, Hijikata, Ishii, and Haruka leave alone and take the letter with them outside. They open up the letter and read it, but what they learn shakes them to their core. According to the letter, Azusa's fiancé was none other than Takeda, the one suspected of Nani's murders. As such, they drop Haruka off at her apartment and go to the office to reinvestigate the case. Haruka is clearly exhausted, claiming that she hasn't slept since Yakumo disappeared. And so, she immediately goes to her bed and falls asleep despite trying to stay awake. Meanwhile, the blonde man tells his subordinate that he is going to Yakumo because Takeda has made his move and entrusted her to capture Haruka. In the meantime, Takeda is still being chased, but suddenly, at a dead end, he disappears in front of his pursuers. Back at the office, Ishii stubbornly asks for any information regarding Takeda, wanting to find Godu. But Chief Miyagawa reprimands him, telling him to clean the toilets like the new employee he is. However, she drops subtle hints in her order, leading Takeda to locate a file in the restroom. Soon after, Miyagawa also enters the men's washroom where she encounters Ishii and finds Godu. "It was my first time in the men's restroom, but I don't think I can believe her anyway," Ishii comments. After his talk with the chief, Ishii talks to Godu's wife, telling her not to worry as he will find her husband. Back at Haruka's apartment, the blonde woman arrives to kidnap Haruka, but suddenly, Takeda stands in front of her. Not only that, but he has also mobilized the police, which is why he appeared in front of the officers, preventing this woman from executing her evil plan. Elsewhere, Yakumo is seen tied up and beaten. The following morning, thanks to Takeda's efforts, Haruka wakes up in her own bedroom. Takeda appears in front of her and tells her that Yakumo is safe. Moreover, he claims that Yakumo is currently in Nagano, and he has a message for Haruka to practice for her concert. With this, Takeda then disappears. But of course, despite knowing there are people after her, Haruka willingly heads to Nagano. The blonde woman is seen following her as well. As they board the train, Haruka calls her mother and explains the situation. Meanwhile, Hijikata and Ishii found nothing out of the ordinary with the file. As a result, they head to meet with Hada. There, they figure out that Miyuki, the young girl who was kidnapped while the murder occurred, resembles Hoshino, the woman who gave them the ghost footage and the blonde woman. Realizing this, she rushes to Miyuki's grade school teacher and interviews her. it is revealed that her family used to torture her and her father even had a separate room where he used to have his way with her. During the investigation, they did not find a room like this, so they hurried back to the mansion. There, Take, his ghost, guides them to a secret room where they find Goto imprisoned. As such, they both free him, but Goto is in a rush. According to him, Yakumo and Haruka are in danger. He claims that Take's ghost has informed him about everything, and the blonde man wants to kill Haruka in front of Yakumo to bring him into darkness. Meanwhile, Haruka finally reaches Nagano, where her mother picks her up. As such, they both immediately head to the villa where Azusa was kept while kidnapped. Consequently, they make their way there. In the meantime, Haruka leaves her mother some distance away and ventures into the woods alone. Eventually, locating a wooden shed, she finds Yakumo inside and frees him. However, he has been drugged and is still dizzy from the after effects. Suddenly, Miyuki appears behind them, holding the crossbone. She threatens the duo, but in a stroke of luck, Goto and the others arrive at the scene from behind. As Goto sneaks up on Miyuki, Yakumo acts as a distraction. The question of who the killer was arose, prompting Miyuki to explain that it was all her doing all along. After the fact, the blonde man set it up so that Takeda was suspected, but he was not the actual culprit. While she blabbers on, Goto finds the perfect moment and jumps on her, restraining her and allowing Yakumo and Haruka to run away. However, suddenly, the blonde appears in front of them. Not only that, Miyuki is able to knock out Goto with a taser as well. Upon the man's command, Miyuki is about to shoot an arrow at Haruka's leg, but suddenly Azusa's spirit appears in the nick of time. She prevents Miyuki from firing and is prepared to finally show Yakumo the truth. Goto explains that according to Takeda, when he was blamed as a criminal, Azusa went into a state of grief, confusion, and hatred. In those weak moments, this cold man coerced her into killing Yakumo, claiming that he would grow up to kill even more than Takeda, and that is the reason she tried to kill him. Upon hearing this, Yakumo understands what his mother had to go through and forgives her. Furthermore, he proclaims that he has many invisible bonds with others, both dead and alive, and because of this, he will not succumb to the darkness. But of course, the blonde man is skeptical of this, wanting to see how much more Yakumo can endure. Suddenly, Miyuki frees herself and uses her taser to cause an explosion, allowing her and her master to escape. Nonetheless, Yakumo and the others set up a grave for Azusa and Takeda, where their souls can finally depart in peace. Before leaving, Azusa is able to caress her son and eventually ascends into the skies. With this, the ordeal comes to an end. After the performance, Yakumo and Haruka drop off her mother at the station. Keiko tells Haruka to come back home more often and also asks Yakumo to watch over her daughter. Not only that, as the train leaves, she claims she has something to give them and will send it as soon as possible. On the other hand, Hijikata is at a hospital where she learns that a ghost has been appearing recently. As per a friend of hers, a ghost appears above the sleeping patients, asking them when they will die. Because of this, several patients have also worsened their health due to the shock. As such, she decides to bring this matter to Yakumo. However, as she exits the hospital, she bumps into Nao and Isshin, who have come here for a mild headache. After exchanging formalities, Hijikata makes her way to Yakumo and tells him about the incident. Hearing this story, he agrees to investigate this case. However, as of now, he has some prior arrangements. Consequently, he heads out to meet with Goto, Ishii, and Haruka. There they try to find clues about Yakumo's father and Miyuki's whereabouts. Not only that, after Ishii's ridiculous theory that the blonde man is a zombie, Yakumo also thought that his father might be a ghost. Back at the hospital, Nao meets with a little girl in a wheelchair who is telling Nao about death and such. Meanwhile, Isshin learns that he has something wrong with his brain and as a result might not be able to live into the next year. Later, Miyuki is also cornered and arrested by the police, and Goto learns about this. The next morning, Megawa explains that she has already sent in a request to interview Miyuki. According to her, the person in charge of this investigation 15 years ago is now an administrator at the headquarters. In order to keep his reputation intact, he is trying to make sure this incident isn't brought to the public. And as such, Miyagawa has to act fast if she wants to know the truth. Meanwhile, Miyuki is seen sitting in her cell, hopeful that he will save her and give her freedom. On the other hand, Isshin is heading back to the temple after undergoing another examination at the hospital. But this time he cannot seem to find Nao anywhere and tries searching for her. While doing so, he meets with the same wheelchair-bound girl whom Nao had met previously. Upon seeing her, Isshin asks if she had seen a small girl nearby, but she denies any knowledge of it. Moreover, they start talking, and the girl reveals that she is dying with no more than 6 months to live. But Isshin comforts her. Suddenly, Nao arrives and asks this girl to be Nao's friend from now on. As this scene plays out, the concerned doctor is seen watching over all of them. Later that night, the doctor is approached by some shady-looking individuals. The next day, Yakumo is looking over the call log confiscated from Miyuki and discovers that she had never called his father before. In his mind, this solidifies his theory that the blonde man is a ghost. All of a sudden, Haruka receives a call from Hijikata, informing her that the hospital is now open for Yakumo to investigate. As a result, they go to Isshin's temple. Isshin is also just a roving presence, and there, Yakumo asks if he can borrow Isshin's car. Along with this, Isshin decides to keep his trip to the hospital a secret from his nephew. But first, it's time for some tea. As they all sit and drink, Isshin brings out a photo album that Keiko has sent him. In this album, there are photos of Yakumo as a child. According to Isshin, Keiko must have kept them when Azusa sent them to her. Upon seeing this, Yakumo becomes sentimental and tries to leave, but Isshin stops him. As such, he sits back down and gets to see photographs of himself along with his mother. Azusa is wearing a bright and cheery expression while with her son. After this, Isshin takes Yakumo to the oratory area, where he asks if Yakumo hates his father, the blonde-haired man. There, he realizes he cannot tell Yakumo to stop his hatred but advises him to control it and not be consumed by it. But Yakumo asks why he is being told all of this all of a sudden. Isshin drops the bombshell on him. The doctors have given him at most 6 months to live. Isshin wants to keep this a secret from now. With a scene shift, Megawa is seen interviewing Miyuki. Miyuki claims that Isshin will die and the one to do it will be that man. On the other hand, the blonde man is standing on a rooftop overlooking the city. After his chat with Isshin, he was allowed to borrow the car, but he still seemed out of it. He just cannot wrap his head around the fact that Isshin will soon no longer be with him. As they leave, Isshin also asks Haruka to watch over Yakumo from now onwards. With this, they both make their way to the hospital where Hijikata is waiting for them. In the meantime, Ishii and Goto hastily make their way to the temple. On the way, Ishii learns about what Miyuki said. Eventually, they reach the temple, but Isshin is nowhere to be seen. Nonetheless, he soon arrives with Nao, claiming they had gone out to eat. Isshin is already aware of the threat he faces. Despite the situation, he is ready to face Yakumo's father and tells Goto to take care of Nao if anything happens to him. Suddenly, the blonde man appears behind them. Piston knocks out Goto with a swift punch to the gut. This leaves Isshin alone with the blonde man, and before he is killed, Isshin wants to talk with his future killer. Consequently, they enter the media creation area where Isshin begins his story. He tells the man about how he bore so much animosity and hatred towards him, the man who left his sister in hell, and inflicted such evil and sinister trauma upon Yakumo. However, those feelings have long since died. While he continues with his story, the blonde man suddenly jumps using a knife to stab him. Soon after, Goto wakes up. He rushes to the meditation area worried about Isshin and finds him lying on the floor with a stab wound in his stomach. Upon seeing this, he yells for Ishii and orders him to call an ambulance, which arrives soon. Nao and Goto accompany Isshin into the hospital while Ishii remains at the temple to help with investigations. On the other hand, Yakumo is still feeling distracted. Despite this, they happen upon the ghost and find that it has turned a new leaf. The ghost is seen apologizing to the patient she terrorized before. While contemplating what this could mean, Haruka starts her phone and immediately gets a call from Ishii, informing her of the recent development. And so, they rush back to the temple, but Goto calls them midway, telling them that they are needed at the hospital they were just at. And so, they all reach the hospital, and Isshin is put in an emergency operation. However, even the doctor fails to be useful. Even with the machine connected to him, Isshin's heart is still barely beating, and he is now brain dead due to the lack of blood. Hearing this, everyone is completely distraught and perplexed. Suddenly, Arai, Hijikata's friend, comes to talk with Yakumo privately. Arai and Goto also announce that they will be the ones to take care of Nao from now on, keeping true to the word they gave to Isshin. As such, he brings Haruka and Nao to his home and leaves immediately to help with the investigations. There, Goto's wife takes care of Nao, who is mentally exhausted and falls asleep soon after. Meanwhile, Yakumo spends the entire night by Isshin's side. The next morning, Hijikata tells Miyagawa that she has been ordered by her boss not to write about Isshin's stabbing. Not only that, but Miyagawa is also having trouble, as the administrator is trying his best to keep this incident under wraps and away from the public's view. Meanwhile, Goto takes Hada to the temple and asks him to perform forensics. But there, how to find something concerning, such as the lack of the culprit's footprints. Anyway, after they are done, she and Goto head to the police station. However, Megawa tells Goto to just head back home, claiming that she has to be there for Nao. As such, he heads back, seeing that Nao is cheerful and happy, but Goto is not. He is extremely torn up that Ishin is in such a condition, and deep inside, now is as well. At the prison, the blonde man possesses Miyuki, for instance, making her act crazy and insane. This allows her to be sent to the hospital, and the man leaves her body soon after. On the other hand, Yakumo hasn't moved an inch the entire night, and in the morning, Haruka visits him at the hospital. She is also given Ishin's red contact lenses. Haruka gives this to Yakumo, who recalls just how much Ishin had to go through because of him. Yakumo revealed why he was called to talk alone. It has been confirmed that Ishin is a registered organ donor, and the doctors are waiting for his next of kin to give the go-ahead for the extraction of his organs. The physician is not yet dead. Now, Yakumo is still hesitant to give them the green signal. All of a sudden, they see a child ghost appear by Ishin's side. This ghost checks up on him and then leaves, but Yakumo and Haruka decide to follow it back. Thanks to this, they are able to locate where the ghost is headed and learn that it is the ghost of a little girl, the same one as Shin and now had met previously, named Yoshiko. Eri, who is with them, informs them about Yoshiko's condition and explains that she will die without an organ transplant. As they leave the hospital that night, Yakumo is seen staring at a black car. Somewhere else, it is revealed that the ambulance carrying Miyuki was stolen and has just been discovered. Two policemen spot the ambulance and move in to intercept it. Suddenly, the blonde man appears behind them, posing as a distraction. He allows Miyuki to attack the officers from behind. Using pipes at the police station, Haruka confides in Godu, telling him that she thinks Yukiko has found the real culprit. However, because of Vision's condition, his hatred has manifested, and he now hates the world. Upon hearing this, Godu recalls that he was also like this in middle school. This piques Haruka's curiosity, and as such, Godu tells her about his and Yakumo's story. He first met Yakumo the day he saved him from his mother. However, after that incident, he no longer saw him around. That is, until one night when Godu was pursuing a criminal. He happened upon Yakumo in the park late at night. Despite Yakumo remembering Godu, things do not translate the other way around. It was not until a few days later that he realized the identity of the boy he met in the park. One day, he oversees Yakumo being picked on by some kids. As such, he jumps in to save him where he sees this boy with a left red eye. Seeing this, he finally remembers who this boy is, and ever since then, their ties have continued. All of a sudden, she rushes into the room and informs Godu about Miyuki's escape. She mentions that they had killed 2 officers and stolen a gun. Moreover, Godu receives a call from his wife, Atsuko, who has gone to visit Ishin at the hospital. However, all of a sudden, Hijikata also sees Yakumo there, looking all serious. As such, she tells Godu that he was looking and acting strange. Hence, Godu and Haruka rush over to the hospital, but they find that the route has been closed down. Back at the hospital, Yakumo confronts his uncle's surgeon, Dr. Sakakibara. He explains that he can see ghosts. The most recent ghost haunting this hospital belongs to Yoshilo, who is Sakakibara's daughter in dire need of a transplant. She only has 6 months to live if she does not receive surgery. Upon seeing this, Sakakibara planned to intentionally cause brain death in Emison, who was a registered organ donor and a perfect match for Yoshiko. Of course, the doctor refuses to listen, but Yakumo continues pressuring him. At the last second, Kibara breaks down. He asks why this man would suspect him when the murder was already foretold by the culprits, and they are currently roaming free on the streets. And there is Yakumo's evidence, it hasn't been released to the public, that the murderer was foretold. Sakakibara has outed himself as the culprit and made a run for it. Unable to drive his car, he tries fleeing on foot but sees Haruka and Godu arrive walking since the route was closed. Seeing them, he heads to the roof to leave via helicopter, but Yakumo is waiting for him. Now with no place left to run, Sakakibara tries to use a scalpel and kill Yakumo as well but gets overpowered easily. Yakumo is then confronted by his father on the rooftop. A blonde man tries to tell Yakumo once again what he has been saying all along. The truth behind humans is darkness. Even law-abiding citizens will kill without hesitation if it means they and their families can survive. Upon hearing this, Yakumo claims that his father was the one who tricked Sakakibara, but the man refutes this, stating that all he did was give him an opportunity. Sakakibara was the one who decided and acted upon his impulses. Soon, Godu, Haruka, and the others arrive at the roof while Yakumo tests out his theory using only his left eye. He confirms that his father is nothing but a ghost. Suddenly, Miyuki jumps in from another roof, holding a gun. She aims at the onlookers and shoots. The bullet penetrates straight into Godu's abdomen, causing him to scream out in pain and collapse on the floor. Upon seeing this, a greater deal of hatred arises inside Yakumo, and this is exactly what his father wanted. In this moment of weakness, the blonde man uses his shadow to take over Yakumo's body as the others watch, not knowing what is happening. Miyuki chimes in and explains that two souls cannot coexist within one body. This is the same principle she took advantage of in her escape from prison. However, there is a way to overcome this barrier. According to her, if the host and the dead soul are on the same level, it can allow the ghost to take over the host's body completely. And that is what Miyuki and the blonde man wanted. Along, the blonde man, born with emotions of despair and enmity, will take possession of his son's body, who also harbors the same enmity. After learning how his uncle was betrayed by humanity, not long after, Yakumo stands up, but it is seen that both of his eyes are blood red. This leads me to believe that the potion has worked. As she moves closer to him, delighted and overjoyed to once again be able to touch him, the blonde man's ghost gives her a tight hug. Nevertheless, it is seen that Yakumo is still in control of this body. Using her agility, she is able to restrain Miyuki and snatch the gun away from her. It is seen that he was using his uncle's contacts and used them to deceive their enemy. Nevertheless, Miyuki manages to free herself and picks up the scalpel Sakakibara used to kill Yakumo. But the injury derails Goto's progress. Despite having a gunshot wound in his gut, he tackles Miyuki, enabling Isshu to grab hold of the gun she was using. As such, he points it towards Miyuki, but she remains unafraid and bares her fangs towards Yakumo. But soon, she breaks down. She asks where on earth her master is when suddenly she sees the ghost of the blonde man behind Yakumo once again, this time on the verge of disappearing. Even in this state, the man tries to mock Yakumo, claiming that he will one day succumb to the darkness, since they are connected by blood. However, Yakumo corrects him. His father is not this wretched spirit, rather it is Seto Ishin, the man who raised him to be who he is now. To prove his point, he heads towards Sakakibara and tells us just how much animosity he holds for what he did to his uncle. However, he is also a victim. Upholding his uncle's last wish, he agrees to sign the consent form for organ donation in order to save Yoshiko's life. However, in exchange for her operation, Sakakibara must turn himself in. Without wanting to live in this cycle of hatred, he then turns to his father, vowing to never become like him. But the blonde is unchanging. He claims that as a ghost, you will one day return and meet with Yakumo again, as he will not disappear until his objective is fulfilled. Seeing him disappear, Miyuki also tries to escape, but knowing that his beloved cares not for her, she drives her car into a lake. Soon after, a funeral is held in Inishin's honor. Goto sneaks out of the hospital to attend, along with Haruka and Isshu, and meets with Megawa and Hejikata, who are already there. As they gather, Isshu points out how the blonde man never committed a crime himself, rather, he just appears and coerces weak-willed people into doing the crime. As such, Isshu deems him the cluster of human sin. Following the funeral of Yakumo's uncle, an unexpected discovery awaited him. His uncle's spirit lingered, unwilling to depart from the realm of the living. However, through heartfelt persuasion, Yakumo managed to convince his uncle that both he and Isshu would be well cared for and surrounded by a loving family. Relieved, the uncle finally departed, finding peace at last. As this chapter ends, everything slowly reverts to normal. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this and want to see more, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on so you never miss a future video. And until next time guys, take care.